Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Lefebvre, and today I'm going to teach you the 5 basic strokes you need to learn to paint literally anything. So let's jump in and get started. Okay, so today I'm just painting in this little sketchbook I have. You can use a scrap piece of paper or anything you have just laying around. You're gonna need some water, your paints. I'm using my Shinhan watercolor paints. And then you're gonna need a brush. So for this, I would say try and use a round brush, and I'm gonna show you the basic strokes you need to paint anything really. And for beginners, I always suggest using a round brush. It's the most versatile brush for people to use, and I feel like it's the most familiar brush for a lot of us. So you're gonna need that, and then some paper towel just to dab your brush. I have a size 8 round that's well loved, and a size 10 here. I think I'm gonna use my size 8 to start. But yeah, all right, let's go. So the first thing I'm gonna do is wet my brush. And the first stroke I want you to practice is light pressure, thin strokes. So the one thing you need to know with painting, with watercolor, with acrylic, really anything, is it's all about using different amounts of pressure with your brush. So for this, you can pick up any color, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna use the tip of your brush to create tiny, light, little strokes. So you're using very minimal pressure. I have my brush kind of like, if you were looking at the side, on this like 45-degree angle. Okay, and you're just creating these really light, thin strokes. And this can be a little bit tricky only because a lot of us, even me, I can have a little bit of a shake to my hand. So it's really hard to use the light pressure. When you're using a heavier pressure, you have a bit more stability. But with light pressure, you really need to just skim the top of the paper to get these really thin strokes. So it can be a little bit tricky. What I suggest doing is kind of anchoring your elbow down on your paper, and just instead of just moving your wrist, try and move your whole arm a bit. Like, so you're kind of moving it all instead of going like this, and then it can get a little bit shakier. Really anchor your hand down to use as that support. So a stroke like this would be great for grass. You can even like flick a little bit and lift it up so you can get that really nice pointed edge. Extend the life of your stroke. So just practicing making curves, you know, even just like squiggles, using light pressure, training your hand with this light pressure, which I think is probably the most difficult stroke to do just because you need that stability. Practicing will really help a lot. So just hovering above and practicing these really thin lines. Sometimes moving quicker helps. If you go too slow, that's when you can get kind of shaky. So really thin, quick lines will help you do that. Now, this, like I said, can be used for grass, can be used for sketching little outlines and shapes. I suggest practicing different shapes, but also using these little kind of light pressure strokes, even really, really short ones can be great. Like this, just pressure can be great for like the center of a flower per se, right? You're doing these tiny little dabs. So the first stroke I want you to practice is a really light pressure stroke. Probably the most difficult, but you can totally do it with lots and lots of practice. Okay, so the second stroke is heavy pressure. And what you're going to be doing, if you're not sure of the anatomy of a brush, we have the tip of the bristles, we have the base of the bristles, which hits the ferrule, which is the metal part here. But right in the middle where the brush kind of becomes the fattest, that's called the belly of the brush. I feel like this one is a little thicker. It's kind of nicer to see. Okay, so not the tip, not the base, but the belly. Now, when we're doing a lot of heavy pressure strokes, you want to push down to the belly of the brush. So you're not going to be pushing down so hard that you're hitting the ferrule on the paper where you're going to be dragging the ferrule, but you want to bring your brush up so it's just the belly. I hope I can show you this. I'm trying to like, okay, let's see. So you don't want the ferrule where it's like all the way down and then that to be scraping. What you want is that belly, okay? So that fat part right there to hit. And that's going to give you a really nice thick stroke, okay? So let's grab a different color here, change it up. I'm gonna grab my quinacridone rose. And I want you to be practicing heavy pressure, pressing down to the belly of the brush. So see how my brush kind of comes up on a more like a straight angle. So it's not like fully straight up in the air. It's a bit more upright than that 45-degree angle that we were using, but it's not like so close to the paper that you're going to be scraping the ferrule. Okay. So, and you're just going to practice dragging to the belly of the brush and then lifting up. Okay. This is our second stroke, our heavy pressure. Like this. Okay. And this is a little bit easier because you have the stability of the pressure, the heavy pressure. Okay. So it's a lot easier to get straighter lines. And this is great for when you're doing backgrounds. So say you're doing like a sky, you can use it like this, or you can turn your brush like this and use it sideways. Again, you're not having it fully sideways. It's going to be pressing down to the belly and just dragging it sideways. So when I do a sky, I won't go this way, because when you go back this way, you're going to fray the brushes. I have it pointing up and down, and I'm just going to go back and forth like this, just pressing down to the belly of the brush. This is great for when you want to cover a large area in a short amount of time to get a really nice blend. Okay, so I'm just going back and forth. If I was using the light pressure like we were doing up there, you'd get tiny little lines, right? But you want those nice thick lines to cover lots of area. So that's really great for our thicker strokes. And also if you're, painting anything, a large area, or even just a thicker, whatever, I don't know. It's great to have the practice of painting with heavier pressure. So now we have our thin pressure and our thick pressure strokes. Now we're going to start combining them to make a thin to thick to thin stroke. Now this is great for creating lots of things, but more specifically on my channel, I do a lot of floral work, and this is the key stroke of how to create those effortless petals and effortless leaves. So what you're going to do, I have my size 10 here. I'm going to grab some color. And we're going to start with the tip of our brush with light pressure. So you see how you have that thin line. And then you're going to gradually, as you're moving your brush, press down to the belly of your brush, drag it out a bit, and then release pressure slowly while you're still dragging it. And you get this thin to thick to thin stroke, which is great for leaves and great for petals. So you're going to want to practice this a couple different ways. So here I dragged it so it was, about this long. Say you want a really short leaf, okay? What you're going to do is you're going to minimize the dragging time. So meaning you're going to go light pressure, heavy pressure, and then to make it a short leaf, you're going to lift up sooner than later. And you have a short leaf. But look how perfect that leaf is, right? So you can practice over and over again. So this is going sideways. Try going upwards even. Change the direction of your leaves so you have a bit more practice of range of movement with your hand and your brush. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Okay, and you're just going to keep practicing that. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Look at these perfect looking leaves. Now, if your brush doesn't feel right, it feels a little bit wonky, maybe you're getting I don't know, some parts, maybe it's not coming up the right way. That's totally okay. It does not have to be perfect. You can always go back with light pressure and kind of sketch out the shape of your leaf to fix it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. This is not the end all be all with this is how you create a leaf. You can go back and fine tune it. I do that all the time. Sometimes I'll even combine this to do two shapes together. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And then maybe I don't love the shape of this leaf, so I'll do it again right beside it. And even so, leaves are not completely perfect, right? You kind of want different shapes, little different imperfections in them to make them look more realistic. Now, the one thing with this stroke, say we are doing leaves, what you will notice here, see where I lift it up? There's a little puddle of color there. So you might be like, well, I don't like the way that looks, where it's really dark here and light here. All you have to do with that, and the reason why that happens is because you're going light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. When you lift up, it leaves a little puddle of color right there. And when it dries, this area is still more wet than the rest of the leaf. So they dry at different rates, which causes that harsh line, which I have tons of videos on. But if you don't like the look of this while it's still wet, just move that color around using your light pressure, just the tip of your brush, and just make it evenly, just disperse the color and the water evenly, and you won't have that issue. Okay, so there's some leaves, but you can do the same thing with petals. So say there's like a small little center of a flower there. I'm going to grab my smaller brush. And then you're just going to do the same thing. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And you get these like beautiful leaves. See, or petals. So see, I didn't like the shape of that petal. That's okay. You can just go back and fix it. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And you can just keep going like that. Now, if you want to create a longer leaf, so we did short little stubby ones here, all you have to do is increase the length that you're dragging it out. So again, light pressure, heavy pressure, and just keep going, keep going, keep going. And then whenever you want it, as long as it is, you can release pressure so it comes to a point. If you want it to come to a point, just make sure you're slowly releasing that pressure so it drags to a point. If you find it's going a little bit more blunt, like that, and you're not getting that point, you're just lifting it too abruptly. You want to do it a little bit lighter and still drag it out to get that point, but also an abrupt stop is not a bad thing. I do that a lot for some of my leaves just to make them look a little bit more weathered and realistic. So like an abrupt stop, okay, like that. But it's totally up to you. This is a really great stroke to practice. Now, with this stroke, we're going to learn 2 more different kinds of techniques on how to enhance this. So I'm going to grab a different color. Let's grab some blue. Let's throw some blue in here. Okay. And the first stroke that I'm going to teach you using the light to heavy to light pressure is called a C stroke. So all you're doing is this stroke, but in the shape of a C. So you're going to go light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Now try not to think of a C like this, where it's too circular, but a bit more kind of stretched out. This is really great for petals as well. Okay, so light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and you're just doing these curves. Try going the other way. Try going, overhead like this, and then down like this. You can make them a bit more rainbow-like if you want, where they're a bit more arched, but also try to do a slight C curve where it's a bit more flat, okay, where there's not that much curve, but you get this. And really, I'm just kind of rounding the one side out. This is perfect for painting waves. This is also perfect for painting petals. You can combine 2 C curves to create a petal or a leaf, which is really great. So you can go light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. See how I curved it? And then come right back here and you're going to curve it underneath. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And you have this perfect leaf or petal shape even. It's a little bit thicker, fatter. Okay, you can do another one right beside it. And this is how I create a lot of my petals for my flowers. But again, mountains are basically C curves. Okay, you're just doing this light, heavy pressure to light pressure, and you're just practicing this over and over again. And honestly, you just want to get used to your hand and your brush making these different movements. So again, do it sideways, do it the other way, do it underneath, do it over top, and just do like full pages. You can even just do a bunch of shapes like this and it'll be a beautiful art. Cut it up into a bookmark. Okay, so that's the C curve. And then the last stroke you need to know is an S curve, which is basically what it sounds like. Same light to heavy to light pressure, but in the shape of more of an S. So let me show you. So I'm going to start at the top here. So light pressure, move down to heavy pressure. Keep going heavy, 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 almost kind of like an S. And light. This just helps you to get better curves for your brush movements. I love using this technique specifically for leaves. So making it an S, you don't have to actually make it a full S, okay? It doesn't have to be as curved as this. It's more like a stretched out S, but I like to do this for leaves. So light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure, and you have this like leaf that gives your stroke movement, okay? So what this stroke does is gives your whatever you're painting, your leaves, your petals, whatever it is, it gives it movement, which is so important. So when I'm doing, let's say, a stem of a flower, instead of just doing a petal or a leaf like that, sometimes I like to go, you know, have this, and I'll just like curve it, or you can even go like this way. Just gives a bit more movement to your photos, so it's not so rigid and straight, which is really, really, it's great. Sometimes I do love like a nice uniform, you know, fern looking painting, but sometimes it's really nice to have this beautiful movement within your paintings as well. And again, water, you know, you can have, it doesn't have to be just one little wave. It can be a little bit of a go back up, okay? And this is the same thing if you're painting hair. If you're doing a portrait and you're painting someone's hair, you're going to have this S curve to it. So these are the most important strokes to practice. We have our light pressure, our heavy pressure, light to heavy to light, our C curve, and our S curve. Practice those now. I promise you get the hang of these, you can paint anything. And the last one, just for a fun little mention, kind of like what we were talking about here, dabs, little dabs like this. It's always great to practice, you know, just to get those little tiny dots. Again, just light pressure, it's the same kind of thing, but just practice all these different pressure strokes and get your hand used to moving your brush in different ways. And I promise you'll be more comfortable than you are right now in no time. Thank you all so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.